A chill slithered down my spine, a sensation I rarely experienced, especially not from a simple text message. I want a divorce. I found someone who actually makes me happy. The words seared into my eyes as I stared at my phone, the screen glowing mockingly in the dim light of my home office. My name is Leonard Dixon, and at 48, I dedicated my life to the intricate dance of numbers as a senior financial architect for Grand Solutions in Charleston, South Carolina. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was deep into an audit of a new client's secure transaction protocols when the message arrived. My wife, Sylvia, was supposed to be at a leadership summit in Orlando. 4 days. Standard stuff, she'd said just yesterday. My phone vibrated again, pulling me from the digital abyss of fraud detection. I've already transferred the pension funds to my private account. You can have the townhouse. I don't need it anymore. A cold dread, far more potent than any system error, settled in my gut. I slowly placed my ceramic mug, still warm with forgotten coffee, onto the coaster. With a deliberate calm that belied the growing storm within, I opened my banking app. My fingers, usually so swift and sure on the keyboard, trembled slightly as I navigated to our joint accounts. Sylvia was right. Something was profoundly wrong, but not in the way she imagined. I typed a brief, almost clinical response. I hope you find what you're looking for. 7 words. No histrionics, no pleas, just a stark finality. For the next hour, I remained rooted to my chair, a silent observer of a financial drama unfolding across 3 integrated dashboard systems. Every joint account Sylvia and I shared our pension, investments, emergency savings. Even the discrete checking account she believed was exclusively hers was routed through a consolidated monitoring system I'd meticulously built years ago. When she initiated those transfers, she didn't just move money. She triggered a cascade of automated fraud detection protocols. My system wasn't programmed to understand emotions or marital status. It simply registered 6-figure sums attempting to relocate without proper dual-party authentication. Federal anti-fraud measures embedded deep within the architecture, activated automatically. By midday, my phone, usually a conduit for client alerts and system diagnostics, buzzed incessantly. Not from Sylvia, but from the receiving institutions. Account review initiated. Deposits frozen pending investigation. I didn't smile, didn't feel a surge of triumph. I merely closed the alerts and returned to the complex algorithms on my screen. Someone else's financial security demanded my immediate attention. Sylvia's phone, I knew, would begin its own insistent symphony soon enough. She'd try to access her ill-gotten gains and find her balance at zero. The system, a cold, unfeeling sentinel of financial integrity, had no sympathy for poor decisions. I'd learned that brutal lesson watching countless client accounts freeze during suspicious activity investigations. Money, in its purest form, cared nothing for love, betrayal, or opportune timing. It followed rules, and Sylvia, in her haste, had just shattered every single one. We had been together for 25 years, childhood sweethearts from Savannah, Georgia. Even then, I was the quiet one, the boy who could recite baseball statistics from memory and meticulously track the progress of our school's charity drives. Sylvia, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of charm and persuasion, a natural connector, everything a marketing guru should embody. "You're so obsessed with details," she'd often tease, watching me scrutinize our tax returns for the umpteenth time. "Someone has to be," I'd always reply, a small smile playing on my lips. And for years, it worked. I managed our financial universe, a silent guardian, while she soared through the ranks at Etha Marketing Group. Her career often took her away. Workshops in Tampa, seminars in Nashville, always networking, always for the company. The first whispers of change were subtle, like the almost imperceptible shift in wind before a storm. 6 months prior, she'd stopped asking about our pension projections. 3 months back, a new credit card statement arrived in the mail, opened without a word of discussion. 2 weeks before her summit, she'd remarked, almost offhand, that our spare bedroom, usually a sanctuary of guest comfort, was just too cluttered. Who even visits anymore? Really? My sister, Pamela, had noticed it during our last family gathering. She seems preoccupied, Pamela had murmured, her brows furrowed with concern. Just work stress, I'd explained, too readily dismissing the unease. But Sylvia wasn't stressed. She was calculating. While I meticulously maintained our consolidated financial tracking system, a robust architecture I'd built after a client's devastating audit revealed millions lost to unchecked vulnerabilities, she, too, had been studying it, learning its intricacies, identifying what she perceived as blind spots, except my system didn't have blind spots. Every account was interconnected, every transfer monitored, not from distrust, but from ingrained habit, from years of dissecting complex fraud attempts and understanding the clandestine flow of money when people sought to erase their tracks. Tuesday night, just before she departed for Orlando, Sylvia had been unusually keen on our pension balances. "How much do we have in total?" she'd inquired over a quiet dinner, her fork idly pushing pasta around her plate. "Around 900,000 between all accounts," I'd replied, my mind already drifting back to a complex code sequence. "Why the sudden interest?" "Just curious," she'd said, a casual shrug. Now, that feigned curiosity crystallized into perfect, chilling clarity. She'd been meticulously calculating her exit strategy. The thought of calling her mother, her closest friend Margaret, or even my own parents flickered and died. What could I possibly say? "Your daughter tried to steal our pension and got caught by an automated fraud detection system." It sounded ludicrous, the stuff of cheap thrillers. Instead, I made myself a simple meal, watched the evening news, and checked the alerts one last time. The transfers remained frozen, a digital wall against her ambitions. The fraud investigation, the system advised, would typically take 5 to 7 business days before releasing or returning the funds. Sylvia had gambled on speed, a desperate hope to vanish before I noticed. Before the system caught up, she'd forgotten that in our quarter-century together, I had never, not once, overlooked a financial detail. The call came Friday morning at 11:30. "Leonard, my cards aren't working." Her voice, usually so smooth and controlled, carried that brittle edge I recognized from her high-stakes conference calls when a presentation went awry. Controlled panic, thinly veiled as mild annoyance. "What's your balance?" I asked, my voice flat. "Zero." "How is it zero?" "I transferred everything." "Right," I said, the single word hanging in the air like a pronouncement. I heard her sharp intake of breath, then a strained silence. "What did you do?" she finally spat. "Nothing," I replied truthfully. The fraud detection system flagged unusual transfers from protected pension accounts. Federal regulations require a review for large withdrawals without proper joint authorization. More silence, thick with her dawning realization. "How long?" 5 to 7 business days, I reiterated. "Maybe longer if they find additional issues." She hung up. I sat in my home office, gazing at the litany of fraud alerts on my screen, sipping my now cold coffee. Something fundamental had shifted within me. Not anger, not precisely betrayal, but an absolute clarity. For 25 years, I had safeguarded our financial future, saved diligently, invested shrewdly, built systems to anticipate problems before they materialized, and the woman for whom I had built this fortress had decided, in a cold, calculating moment, to dismantle it all and disappear. But it wasn't the money that truly stung. It was the clinical efficiency of her betrayal. A text message, a transfer, a goodbye, as impersonal as closing a business deal. I pulled up our investment portfolio. Without Sylvia's transfers, our pension accounts remained entirely intact. The townhouse, purchased 5 years ago for $400,000, was now valued at nearly $6. My modest stock holdings in individual accounts, our savings bonds, everything was still there, protected by the very protocols I'd engineered while she was globetrotting to networking events. My phone showed 23 unread texts from Sylvia by Friday afternoon. I didn't bother to open them. What was left to discuss? The divorce lawyer I consulted on Saturday, Mr. Alan Dean, was sympathetic yet direct. File immediately. Mr. Dixon, document everything. Her attempted financial misconduct will work significantly in your favor. I filed on Monday morning. The papers were simple, direct, no alimony requests, no contentious splitting of unaffected assets, just a clean severance. The townhouse remained solely in my name. I hadn't touched our joint checking account. Let it sit there with its $7,000 balance. Sylvia could have that small portion. By Tuesday, the stark reality had settled in. I wasn't the vengeful sort. Never had been. But neither was I naive. The same systems I'd built to protect clients at Grand Solutions had, in a twisted irony, protected me. Banking algorithms didn't care about marriage vows. They cared about patterns, authorization, and compliance. And Sylvia had violated every rule, believing herself to be remarkably clever. I went to work, ate lunch at my desk, and reviewed ongoing fraud cases. The irony was not lost on me. The weekend arrived. I systematically cleaned out the guest room Sylvia had complained about, donated her neglected books, and boxed up old photographs. Not out of anger, but out of a simple, logical practicality. The life I'd known had evaporated with the text message, but the systems I'd painstakingly put in place had endured. Sometimes the best plans are the ones you desperately hope you'll never need, and sometimes they save you without you lifting a single finger. Sylvia retained Miss Regina Herman as her attorney. I knew Regina casually from neighborhood gatherings. She was always the one regaling everyone with stories of legal loopholes and clever workarounds. They swiftly filed a motion, a bold claim that I had orchestrated the account freeze deliberately. Your husband, the papers asserted, maliciously used his financial expertise to sabotage marital assets. I met with my own lawyer, Mr. Dean, a former banker himself. He read the motion, a wry chuckle escaping his lips. They're going with misconduct, he mused, shaking his head. A rather bold strategy, considering the fraud alerts are automated system responses, not manual actions. The hearing was set for 2 weeks out. Meanwhile, Sylvia called the townhouse 17 times on Sunday night. I finally answered, my voice calm, almost detached. Leonard, you need to call the bank. Tell them it was authorized. I'm stranded here. Where is here? I asked. It's Charlotte, she stammered. I'm staying with friends. Charlotte wasn't Orlando. Silence stretched between us. It's complicated, she finally whispered. I'm sure it is, I countered, my voice devoid of emotion. Did you call your conference organizer? Your boss at ETHA? Don't start, she snapped. Just asking, since you're supposedly at a work event. A sharp click, and the line went dead. Monday brought a new, unsettling development. My fraud monitoring systems flagged something new. Sylvia had attempted to open credit cards using our joint address. 3 applications in 2 days, all summarily declined due to the pending fraud investigation. She was ensnared in a financial vice of her own making. No accessible funds, credit frozen, travel restricted to whatever cash she had on hand. A chilling whisper of suspicion snaked through my thoughts. Tuesday, Regina called me directly, her voice tight with thinly veiled frustration. This is getting messy. Leonard, your wife needs basic living expenses. She's welcome to use the joint checking account, I replied, my voice steady. $7,000 is sitting there, untouched. That's hardly reasonable, she retorted, a hint of outrage in her tone. It's what we've always carried for emergencies, I countered, a subtle reminder of Sylvia's grand gamble. She considered $900,000 reasonable to transfer without discussion. Regina hung up abruptly. Wednesday brought a revelation through entirely unexpected channels. Mr. Gilbert Rick, Sylvia's boss at ETHA, called me with a concerned edge to his voice. Mr. Dixon, was Sylvia truly at our Orlando summit? HR has no record of her registration. I considered lying, a fleeting thought to protect her, even now. You'd have to ask her, Mr. Rick. She hasn't returned my messages. We've noticed some irregularities in her expense reports as well, he continued, his voice grim. My stomach clenched. Not just a personal betrayal, but professional misconduct too. I can't speak to that, I managed. Understood. But if she contacts you, never mind. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. The fraud investigation, already a growing storm, began to expand exponentially. Bank representatives contacted me directly. Sir, we found multiple unusual transfers between corporate and personal accounts over the past 18 months, all originating from the same workstation IP address. Sylvia hadn't just attempted to steal from us. She'd been systematically siphoning company funds. My quiet, meticulously planned life shattered completely. Every foundation I'd counted on my marriage, trust, basic honesty, now looked fundamentally compromised. But I hadn't pushed her toward crime. I'd simply built systems that caught it when it happened. Thursday morning, Regina filed an emergency motion for Sylvia's living expenses. The judge, recognizing the urgency, scheduled a swift hearing for Friday. I prepared methodically, printing bank statements, fraud alerts, historical transfer patterns. My financial training, honed over decades, kicked in. Evidence, I knew, spoke louder than any accusation. The night before the hearing, Sylvia texted, "I'm sorry it came to this." I didn't respond. Apologies, offered after an attempted theft of this magnitude, rang utterly hollow. Friday arrived, cold and gray, mirroring the landscape of my heart. At the courthouse, I saw Sylvia for the first time since her supposed departure for the summit. She looked smaller somehow, paler, her usual vibrant energy utterly diminished. "Why?" she whispered in the hallway, her voice barely audible. "Why what?" I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Why did I notice? Why did the system work? Why did you try to take everything? She had no answer. The hearing lasted a mere 20 minutes. The judge, with a stern expression, reviewed the fraud reports, noting the automated nature of the holds. He ruled that access to the joint checking account was more than sufficient for basic needs during the ongoing investigation. Sylvia walked out empty-handed, trapped in a financial snare of her own making. The following Monday, an unexpected visitor arrived at my office. Mr. Felix Harding, an investigator from the Federal Financial Compliance Bureau, appeared at my door. "Mr. Dixon, we found compelling evidence of systematic fraud involving your wife and several corporate accounts. We need your expertise." "I'm not involved," I stated, my voice firm. "We know," he replied, a knowing look in his eyes. "That's precisely why we need your help. Your personal fraud detection system flagged patterns we missed." Over coffee in our conference room, Felix revealed the breathtaking scope of the deception. Sylvia hadn't acted alone. Mr. Byron Dwight, another executive at Ether Marketing, had aided her in establishing a complex web of illicit transfers. They'd been moving corporate marketing budgets into personal accounts for nearly 2 years. "Your system," Felix explained, "triggered multiple alerts that led us to audit their entire division." "How much?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Preliminary estimate. Nearly $3 million across various accounts." I felt a wave of nausea. While I'd been meticulously tracking our personal finances, my wife had been orchestrating a sophisticated corporate embezzlement scheme. The betrayal ran deeper, far deeper, than a simple failed marriage. "What happens now?" I asked. "Federal investigation. Your personal accounts are already being separated from the business fraud case. But we need irrefutable documentation showing your complete lack of knowledge or involvement." I provided everything: tax returns, personal financial statements, the entire audit trail of my own tracking systems, every shred of evidence proving I'd built these protocols for protection, not to enable theft. Sylvia texted that evening. "They're saying it's federal charges. They think I took millions." I didn't respond. What could I possibly say? Tuesday brought more unsettling revelations. Our realtor, Mr. Marion Seth, called about unusual inquiries. "Someone's been asking about putting your townhouse on the market, Mr. Dixon. Pre-approved cash buyer. Price offered is $400,000. Said they represented you and your wife. $400,000. The original purchase price from 5 years ago. Byron Dwight made these inquiries, I stated, a cold certainty in my voice. How did you know that name? Marion asked, clearly surprised. The pieces clicked into place, forming a horrifying mosaic. Sylvia and Byron hadn't just stolen money. They'd been planning to buy our townhouse at its old value through a Confederate buyer, then flip it for the current market price of $600,000. Pocket the difference. A complete exit strategy, meticulously disguised as a real estate transaction. Wednesday, I met with Detective Angela Chen from the Charleston Financial Crimes Unit. She confirmed the chilling pattern. They targeted properties owned by corporate employees. Mr. Dixon created artificial market pressure to force below-market sales. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a quiet intensity. Your system detected transfer anomalies that uncovered the entire scheme. How many victims? I asked, my voice hoarse. 12 families so far. Your case is the cleanest evidence trail we have. I thought of those 12 families. People like me who trusted, who planned carefully, who followed the rules while others found insidious ways around them. Thursday, Sylvia's desperate attempt to access the frozen funds through an emergency court order failed. Her lawyer, Regina, requested an urgent conference. Your client needs to prepare for a federal indictment, Mr. Dean explained, his voice grim. Regina looked utterly shaken. Federal wire fraud, conspiracy, possible RICO charges if they establish an ongoing enterprise. Sylvia, I realized, would face significant prison time, not just for attempting to steal from me, but for the systematic theft from her employer and coordinated property fraud. That evening, I forwarded all my financial documentation to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Every fraud alert, every monitoring log, every piece of evidence my systems had collected. I hadn't built those systems for revenge, but they had, unequivocally, uncovered a crime far larger than a personal betrayal. Justice, I understood, didn't spring from anger. It stemmed from facts, from patterns, from systems designed to reveal the truth. And sometimes, truth ruined more than just marriages. I testified before the grand jury Thursday morning. My voice was clean, factual, devoid of emotion as I explained the intricate workings of my financial monitoring systems. The automated alerts triggered at 3 a.m. when transfers exceeded preset thresholds. No human intervention required. The prosecutor nodded, appreciating the technical precision. Did you ever access your wife's accounts without permission? He asked. No, I responded. The system monitored joint accounts only. I built it to catch unusual patterns in our shared finances. 2 hours of testimony flowed from me, details about every alert, every security protocol, how the system differentiated normal from suspicious activity. Sylvia's potential sentence grew clearer with each passing minute. The U.S. Attorney's Office outlined the charges: multiple counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of conspiracy, and 2 counts of embezzlement. 20 years minimum if convicted. After my testimony, I drove straight to my office at Grand Solutions. My team leader, Miss Ruby Chang, had been fielding calls all week. Federal investigators said they need our full systems audit. Leonard, everything Sylvia had access to. We spent Friday converting 3 years of financial data, every login, every transaction, every access point Sylvia had used to construct her elaborate scheme. None of us saw this coming, Ruby said quietly, her voice tinged with disbelief. Nobody did, I responded. That's why these systems exist. The weekend brought an unexpected, almost profound peace. Federal investigators seized Sylvia and Byron's phones, laptops, and external drives. The evidence mounted hourly. Sunday afternoon, Regina called. Leonard, Sylvia wants to offer information about larger financial crimes. She's prepared to name names if charges are reduced. That's between her and the prosecutors, I said, my voice flat. They might ask about marital reconciliation as character witness material, Regina pressed. I thought carefully about 25 years, about the person I thought I knew, about the schemes I never suspected. "Tell them our marriage ended when she tried to steal our pension," I finally said. "The rest is just numbers." Monday, I received formal notice. The investigation regarding marital assets was complete. All pension funds would be returned to their original accounts. The joint checking account would be split equally $7,000, half of what Sylvia thought she needed for basic expenses. Tuesday brought a chilling finality. Federal indictments were issued. Sylvia, Byron, and 5 other ETHA employees were charged with running an organized financial fraud scheme across South Carolina. The bail hearing revealed even more. Under federal guidelines, flight risk meant no bond. Sylvia would remain incarcerated pending trial. Her text from jail Tuesday evening read, "I never meant for it to go this far." I finally responded, "You never meant to get caught." Wednesday, the U.S. Attorney offered plea deals, reduced sentences for full cooperation. Sylvia's choice now, 20 years or testify against Byron and his entire network. I cleaned out her office in our townhouse that evening. Boxes of marketing materials, files, computer printouts. In the bottom drawer, hidden beneath a stack of old magazines, I found a small, leather-bound notebook. Inside, meticulously noted, were real estate prices, property assessments, and a list of 12 addresses. Targets, our townhouse among them. She'd planned methodically, just as I would have, but for theft instead of security. Thursday afternoon, the divorce proceedings resumed. Her incarceration complicated everything. "Your wife is willing to concede all marital property," her new public defender explained, "in exchange for your testimony about her character." "I've already testified about what I know," I interrupted. "The financial systems, the fraud alerts," he sighed. "She's asking for personal testimony about your marriage." I considered it. 25 years, the person I thought I knew, the schemes I never suspected. "I'll testify about what I observed," I stated. "Nothing more." Mr. Dean filed the papers, confirming the terms. The townhouse remained mine. Pension accounts restored. Modest alimony rejected. Federal sentencing would render it irrelevant. Friday, a handwritten letter arrived from jail. I got lost in the money, started seeing how easy it was. Byron said the systems could be worked around. I believed him over you. "I'm sorry." I placed the letter in my file cabinet. Evidence of admission, not forgiveness. The systems I'd built kept working. Automated, impartial, catching crimes while marriages crumbled. The federal trial lasted 17 grueling days. I testified twice. First, about the intricate workings of the financial systems. Second, about my marriage. "Did you ever suspect your wife's professional activities?" the prosecutor asked. "No," I replied, my voice unwavering. "I trusted her." When did that trust end? When my fraud detection system caught her attempting to transfer our pension funds without authorization. The jury listened attentively, their faces a tableau of quiet absorption. Sylvia sat smaller each day, paler, her designer clothes replaced by the stark standard of jail attire. On day 12, Byron Dwight cracked. A plea deal accepted. Full cooperation in exchange for 7 years instead of 25. He detailed everything: the marketing budget embezzlement, the property manipulation schemes, a sprawling network of executives across 3 states, and Sylvia's meticulous role as coordinator. "She ran the books," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "Tracked everything. Made sure nothing looked unusual on company statements." The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. She'd learned financial diligence from watching me, then twisted it into a tool for criminal enterprise instead of protection. The prosecution played recorded calls. Sylvia's voice, clear and chilling. "Leonard's too focused on his own systems. He'll never check my work accounts." My wife of 25 years, betting on my respect for boundaries to enable her crimes. Day 17 brought the verdict. Guilty. 12 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of conspiracy, 2 counts of embezzlement, Sentencing was set for 6 weeks later. I walked out of the courthouse directly to my truck. No press conferences, no statements. Just drove home. The financial system had done its job, caught the fraud, provided evidence, enabled justice. Not revenge, just consequences. 2 months after sentencing, Sylvia received 18 years. Byron received 9. I sold the townhouse for $600,000 after fees, more than enough to start fresh somewhere else. I kept my job in Charleston at Grand Solutions, enhancing my fraud detection systems, adding features specifically designed to catch corporate embezzlement schemes. These updates might save other companies millions, Leonard, Ruby reported, her voice filled with quiet awe. That's the point, I replied. The divorce finalized quietly. No contested issues. Sylvia's guilty plea eliminated any contention. I signed the papers while she began her prison sentence. Mr. Dean called with an update. Full restitution ordered. Your pension funds are permanently protected. I bought a smaller house in Savannah. 1 story. Simple. No spare rooms to clutter. No reminders of 25 wasted years. I started teaching part-time at Coastal Carolina University, a financial fraud detection class twice weekly. Real cases, real lessons. Trust but verify, I told my students. Systems protect when people can't. Occasionally, I received letters from prison. Sylvia's remorse, deepening with isolation. I didn't respond, didn't visit, didn't forgive. Not cruelly, just cleanly. The systems operated without emotion, algorithms catching patterns, mathematics revealing truth. I learned to live the same way. 3 years later, my morning coffee ritual is established. Simple breakfast, market checks automated, drives to work without destinations to avoid. Sometimes I pass by Ether Marketing Group while running errands. A new building, a fresh start. 12 families received restitution. I learned to trust carefully. Life continued, orderly, systematic, protected. The lesson carried forward. Betrayal happens. Theft occurs. Systems endure. And sometimes justice arrives through equations rather than emotions. I've made peace with that mathematics.